Welcome to the Good Mood Show. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill. Be sure to hit subscribe so you get a good mood every single week. Today, we're talking with professional speaker and happiness coach, Jason Harwood. Jason focuses on the fun side of habits, and not just any habits, but happiness habits. He's a devoted husband and a father of 7 children. Jason, welcome to the Good Mood Show.
Oh my gosh, great to be here. This is my favorite topic of all time. Yeah, good moods, happiness. It's a great time.
Yeah, I read the book The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor
Love that book.
years ago. And it was basically like the first blueprint of happiness habits.
Yeah.
And I studied it. Like
Yeah.
I broke it down. I started to follow everything that Sean was talking about in that book. And that was really maybe the spark of the whole Good Mood Show. This was over a decade ago. I think that I read that book.
Yeah. Did you put your guitar next to your couch so that you could easily pick up your guitar and start learning how to play it?
You know it. You know it. I got my, well, I was in a band in high school, like a rock band. And we played guitar all through college. Like we had acoustic guitars everywhere, but my guitar was in its case in the attic. And so I pulled it out of its case and set it on the stand out. And then, now my kids are playing guitar.
I love it. Yeah, that's one of the key takeaways from that book. That and he recommends kind of joy breaks or happiness breaks and like watching funny YouTubes or TikToks or cat videos or something, or having something funny on your desk to kind of give you a little bit of a mental happiness break. So yeah.
Why not be silly? Like everything's so serious, like I think silliness is really one of the most overlooked keys to happiness. And today, what we're going to be talking about are the habits of happiness and how to create intentional habits that give you a happier lifestyle. And Jason has got a free resource for you. It is extremely good. It's called the Happily Habits Guide. If you're already a subscriber to the Good Mood Show newsletter, you're going to receive a copy in your email this week. If not, no worries. Go to goodmoodshow.com and sign up for the newsletter, or reach out on the contact page and we will send it over to you. Jason's also going to give you his contact information at the end of the show so that you can reach out and learn more happiness from him. But your life wasn't always this rosy sunrise. And I know you had said to me that you went from kind of feeling like life was a sunset. What was going on there?
Yeah. So it's interesting because through my 20s and 30s, there were so many life goals that I had that I was striving for. A lot of them were kind of physical based, financial based goals. And what was strange is that I had accomplished most of them. Like we have a nice house, we live in a nice neighborhood, drive nice cars. We almost everything we need, we have, so many of life's necessities are taken care of. And what was so strange is that I found myself so consistently waking up, and the first thought that would pop into my head would be almost always negative. It was, oh my gosh, I don't want to do today. Oh my word, I do not want to get through today. I don't want to do this. And I just felt myself gradually moving into that space of darkness. And if you've ever been outside doing something when it's dark, what we tend to do as humans is we tend to adjust to the current state and kind of call that acceptable. So if you've ever been out like playing basketball in the dark, it slowly gets darker and you just keep adjusting it. Oh yeah, I can see the ball. Oh yeah, I can see I remember as a kid playing basketball. Oh yeah, I can still see the ball. And then all of a sudden you can't see the ball. And just slowly over time, you've just been adjusting to say, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. And that's what I noticed was happening in my life is it kept getting a little bit darker. And I just kept saying, okay, this is okay. A little darker. Okay, this is okay. A little darker. Okay, this is okay. And
then the ball hits you in the face.
Yes, you get smashed in the face with the ball and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's actually dark. Maybe we should.
Maybe it's too dark.
Yeah, maybe we should go inside and do something different. And so what I discovered was that, and I'll never forget the morning that it happened, because there I was, nice house, nice bed, laying next to wake up next to my wife, great. About to go upstairs, wake up my kids to go to school, great. To get in my car, great. To drive to a nice job and do all of these things that seem so good on the outside. And I woke up and I flipped my feet over, my feet hit the ground, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to do today. And all of a sudden it was like that ball had hit me in the face. And I said, what am I doing? It's dark. And why do I just keep allowing this to happen? And as you mentioned, I'd read The Happiness Advantage. I've studied Atomic Habits. I've read Tiny Habits. I've read The Power of Habit. And I knew all of these formulas for creating successful habits. And I thought, I have to do the exact same thing. I have to get as intentional as I had been in the financial and physical gain of life. I have to get as intentional around the creation of habits that are specifically intended to help me be happier, be in a good mood every day, so that I don't just surround myself with stuff and slowly slip deeper into darkness. And that was that sunrise moment of saying, all right, I'm going to intentionally every day move into sunrise rather than just let it slip into sunset.
Yeah, this is doing what society says will make us happy. In fact, actually what our survival instincts say will make us happy. This is like the giant con, is that if you make enough money and you drive the right car and you have the right house and people say that you're successful, which is, success in the eyes of others, we think is going to make us happy. If we have the right spouse and we have the family, and then, we go to church, we do all the things we're supposed to do, then that will make us happy. And a lot of times we get to the top of the mountain, we've been climbing it for our whole life.
Yeah.
Like, is this what all there is?
Yeah. And I'm a pretty big believer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're familiar with it, if you're not, go out and just do a Google search on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But it's this pyramid shaped thing. And there's a hierarchy of needs, of things that you need in your life. And once
the first need is food and water and shelter.
Yep. Yeah. And if you don't have that, you don't really care about other things. If you don't have food, water, safety, shelter, you don't care about other stuff. Then you start adding in safety and security. And that's some of that physical stuff. But as soon as you get to a point where, house check, cars check, there's all sorts of research to indicate once you hit a certain level of income, additional income does not create any additional life satisfaction.
Yeah. And they said
you have to be at a base level.
The study I saw said, and this was years ago, so there's been some inflation, but they said household income is 75,000.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if you made then 150,000, it did not affect your happiness at all once you had reached a household income of 75,000. And maybe now let's just say it's 85,000 because of inflation. Once you're there, if that's where the household income is, 200 grand a year, 500 grand a year, $1 million a year adds zero increase to happiness.
Yeah. Because the things that we're looking for are love and belonging, self-esteem, these feelings of connection, of intentional growth. And then Maslow's top piece is what's called self-actualization. And that's just being who you are, living true to who you are. And so that's what I had to discover was, like, what is that for me? How do I build better connections? How do I increase my own self-esteem, and how do I live true to myself? And so I just started creating little habits around how to do those things, because I already knew how to create habits. I just had to apply it in a new direction with those outcomes.
I just saw your bracelet.
Yeah, we have matching ones.
He would love first, right?
Yes.
Oh man, that's awesome. So we donated some of my stepdad's clothes after he passed to a church, and the guy had on, and I loved the WWJD bracelet. What would Jesus do? I just loved it. I loved that question, right? And he had on this HWLF bracelet. I'm like, oh man, it kind of reminds me of WWJD. He's like, yeah, it's the answer to what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
It's he would love first. Like it answered the question of the bracelets that were worn a couple decades ago. I'm like, oh my God. So I asked for a bracelet for my birthday, and my wife just got this for me a couple weeks ago for my birthday.
Yeah.
Man,
I get asked a lot on the so what does the HWLF mean? And it's a fun conversation to say. It reminds us that in this whole search for good mood, happiness, the fastest way to boost your own mood and happiness level is to do something kind for somebody else.
To love.
Yep.
To love. And that's why I got the bracelet. But I want to stick just a moment before we talk about the habits in the self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. The trap we get into if we don't elevate to self-actualization is thinking that happiness will come if we keep filling up the bottom of the pyramid with more safety, more shelter, a bigger house, more money that makes us more secure. And so this chase for more is a never-ending chase, but we just keep filling up the bottom of the bucket and we never get to the top.
Yeah. And that's the hedonic cycle that we get on is, if I just had this thing, then I'd be happy if I just had this thing. And really, if you look back on it, you can see in your own life that pattern that if you buy something new for a while, it's like, oh yeah, I really like that. And then pretty soon you're like, this isn't bringing me happiness. Things just have diminishing return on investment over time. And the things that don't are things like relationships and growth and learning. We've, as a family, we've kind of made a shift. You mentioned we have a whole grundle of kids, and we've made a shift now where for Christmas, we don't buy gifts anymore. We do a trip. And so we do a Christmas trip every year to different places because it's not like my kids need one more thing. But, a couple of day vacation and spending time together, man, it has a remarkable impact on the overall family happiness. And the same thing for us individually.
Yeah, because on the trip, you're bonding and connect. You're not at work and you're not at school and you're not in your routines. You're looking each other in the eye and playing games and having meals together and like creating new memories with people you love. Like this is actual happiness. Yeah. One of the books I read was Happy Money. And it talked about how to use your money in ways that drive happiness, and experiences was one of them. For sure. But I want to go into what your happiness habits look like. And so you had said the time to start making changes is now. Like today.
Yeah.
Why do you say the time is now and not, next year once I have the money to start the family? Or why is it now?
It's interesting because one of the most famous books on habits is Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks in his introduction about an experience where it's tragic, but as a kid, he's a high school baseball player, had dreams of being a college baseball player. And then one day at a high school baseball practice, in an accident, inadvertently, he's hit in the face with a baseball bat at high speed and suddenly has to go through reconstructive surgery and the mental, emotional growth necessary to go through that. And long story short, he still ends up playing college baseball and has is able to fulfill that dream. But because that happened, it forced him into a change in behaviors. And I've talked with a lot of people who have that light switch moment. It's different than a sunset. It's light and then boom, light switch, it's dark. It's car accident. It's medical diagnosis. It's loss of a job. It's loss of a significant relationship. It's, the tragedy of someone you love dying. Some of these things are just boom, and you just have to change. The problem for so many of us is we kind of don't have those. We kind of just are floating along, getting darker and darker and darker until something happens. The ball hits you in the face. And so the challenge is that we have to create internally the same type of drive and commitment and passion about happiness and growth and development that comes when a traumatic experience happens, even when a traumatic experience hasn't happened. If somebody came to me and said, what was the traumatic experience? I put my feet over my bed one morning, my feet hit the floor, and I thought, man, I don't want to do today. And that was the traumatic experience. Well, that's not that doesn't compare with a car accident or a major life event. But for me, it was just, bam, I'm not living this way anymore. I'm changing.
So let's serve the person listening.
Yeah.
This is your baseball bat to the face.
Yeah.
This moment that you're listening to Jason wake us up. If it's dark around you, if it looks like twilight, if it looks like a sunset, this is your wake up. This moment, this is the time to change. And Jason is going to go into the habits that create happiness. And what would you say is one of the keystone habits that we would start to turn the light back on?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And here's why now is the time, because however long it's going to take you, that's how long it's going to take you. If it's going to take you 6 months to get out of the darkness into the light, if you wait 3 weeks to start, it's going to take you 3 weeks and 6 months. If you wait a month to start, it's going to take you a month and 6 months. So just start today. And where I start, and if you do research on happiness habits. In fact, I asked ChatGPT this the other day, Matt, what the habits were that would lead to happiness, and got the answers that ChatGPT would give. And this is what's funny is every habit that I've started, I had heard for a long time that this was a good idea. None of it was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. Nobody's ever told me that I should do that. No, I've been told for a long time that I should do these things. For me, one of the big ones was starting to control my morning. And so I started with gratitude statements, writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for every single moment. And I have right here my little gratitude journal of boom, my 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And I preface that because when listeners hear that, they'll say, oh my gosh, I've heard that before. I know, so had I. My problem was I hadn't done it.
If you've heard it and haven't done it, you haven't heard it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hear it and say, oh, I know that, I know it. If you're not doing it, you don't know it. So that is the awakening, is that there's different types of knowing. There's the knowing, which is intellectually I know, and then there's the knowing, which is I know it with my whole body and being because I'm doing it. And that's the difference between actually being grateful and just knowing that you should write down gratitudes.
Yeah. So that's where I started. I start with kind of a mindset piece. And I also add in a bit of movement in my morning, whether it's just to go outside for a 10-minute walk, run up and down my stairs. I don't start super big with this. This is the first principle of starting and sticking to habits, is to actually start small. Because if I think I got to wake up and do 30 minutes of exercise tomorrow, like I'm never going to do that. But if I wake up and think I just got to do 5-10 minutes of movement this morning to get myself going, then I'm much more likely to do that. So a few minutes of movement, write down my couple of things that I'm grateful for. And that starts to kind of build the momentum I need to then get my morning going in a better direction. And once my morning's going in a better direction, then that builds the momentum through the rest of the day. But for me, it's mindset, it's movement, and then that starts going with the momentum that I need. And the other piece, I throw in a few minutes of meditation. If you're a person of faith, it's, maybe it's some time in scripture or prayer or devotion, or just meditation and just sitting quietly for a few minutes. It does have a significant impact.
I of course, I'm a happiness habit fanatic. So these, the gratitude, the gratefuls is a habit for me every morning. The movement is a habit. The meditation is a habit. The prayer is a habit. And I want to kind of break these down. One of the things that you added to your mindset was belief, which is 3 positive things
Mm-hmm.
about yourself today.
Yeah.
Not just gratefuls. And this is a new twist on writing down 3 things. Why do you say that that we should write 3 things that are positive about ourselves each day?
Yeah. This is a mindset shift because one of the real challenges that we experience in life is that we are oftentimes unintentionally driven to where our mind is going, and the human mind, for whatever reason, drives to the negative. And until we intentionally shift that, we unintentionally go where our mind goes. If you think about the mental, and if you become aware of the mental language going on in your head, particularly about yourself, for most of us, the majority of it's negative. This is a shift to start building self-belief, self-confidence, a reminder of the good. Because when I work with people and we talk about goals that they want to accomplish, one of the first questions I ask them is, what have you accomplished already in your life that gives you confidence that you'll be able to accomplish this? And then they stop and they start thinking, well, I have done this, I have done this, I have done this. Yes, you have. You've been remarkably successful. That's the momentum of your life to get going for that. So I like to start with that and just jot down a couple of positive things about myself, because it gets my mental momentum going in the place of, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do that. And then as a challenge comes, I know this is challenging, but I've dealt with challenging things in the past. I've done hard stuff. I've accomplished things, and I can move to accomplish this. And that is a mindset shift that can have a real powerful impact on you.
I love this. And very few people do this step. A lot of people have a gratitude journal. Very few people are increasing their belief. And it is one of the habits that is actually the first habit I do when I grab my journal. I call it 3 wins.
Mm.
So every morning I write down 3 things I did well yesterday. And I've been doing this for a decade. But I did it because every single day my brain tells me what I did wrong.
Yeah.
Oh man, you were rude to that person, or, oh, you made a mistake here, or I can't believe that they said this to you. And then, so my brain's always counting all the stuff that's not going right and that I'm sucking at, because it thinks it's helping me. It thinks that if it just focuses on all the stuff I do terrible, that'll help me not be terrible. But it's just the opposite. It's the opposite. It's when I think about all the things I do well, like you said, hey, what have I accomplished before that gives me belief and confidence I can accomplish again? Well, every single morning, I just write down 3 things I did well yesterday so that today I know I can do things well today.
The other interesting thing that does for us is that and I think it's the Tetris effect from Happiness Advantage, is whatever we look for, we see more of. And so if you get your mind trained to look for things you're grateful for, things about yourself that are positive, wins, all of a sudden you start noticing them more. Not because there's more of them, but just because you are aware of it. And that was one of my big takeaways from Sean Akers' book as well, is they did this study on people who played Tetris, and then they go out into the world and they see Tetris shapes everywhere. They're walking down the aisle of the cereal thing and moving in their mind the cereal boxes around to form the perfect Tetris shapes. They see the skyrise of a city and they're thinking, oh, if I had this shape, it would fit in. And it's just what we train our mind to see, we'll see more of. So when you start writing those things down,
that's fascinating. And that's a new, and I hadn't remembered that study, the Tetris effect. It's really cool. But I tell people, don't watch stressful TV shows.
Yeah.
Because if you see stress and fear and all the, like, hiding bodies and people getting shot, and you're like afraid tomorrow you'll see a world that's really fearful.
Yep.
But those are the most popular TV shows.
I know. I can't get into these true crime shows because I'm like, I need less. I don't need that. I don't need to be walking around thinking about that stuff.
But so why it's so addicting, and the reason that it's so addicting is because our brain is already wanting to focus on everything that's going wrong. So then when we watch a fantasized version of things that went very, very wrong, our brain is addicted to it. So it's like we have to consciously choose to see a new game of Tetris.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, man, well, what the heck am I going to watch on TV now? Well, maybe well, you've got 7 kids, man. You don't have time for TV.
Very little. If I get 30 minutes in, like it would be a rare day that I get 30 minutes in. But
but we still, my wife and I, we put the kids down, and then as we're falling asleep, we watch a show. So last night we were watching Naked and Afraid. These survival shows are super fun. And it's human psychology too, by the way, when you're watching these people starving. And
oh my gosh,
they're fun. They're fun human psychology experiments. The other thing you said that you do for mindset that I wanted to ask you about was a focus on the one most important thing to do today. Is that something that every morning you're asking yourself, what's the one thing today?
It's somewhere between 1 and 3, but after I write down my 3 things that I'm grateful for. Some people do this at night, the night before, because they can't get their mind to shut down if they're spinning on all the things they need to do the next day. So if it's more helpful for you to do it at night, then right before you go to bed, jot down the 3 things that you need to do the next day, or the one thing. But so I have a little planner. I've got my gratitude journal, and then I have a little habit tracker and daily kind of task thing. And so I write down my 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then for me, it's just helpful, jot down the 1 or 2 things that I know I really need to get done that day, because oftentimes we get stuck in moments of kind of malaise, or we get trapped oftentimes in the afternoon and a little bit of afternoon slump. And so we're thinking it's hard to get our minds going around what we need to do. The more you can reduce the energy necessary to do something, the more likely you are to do it. So if I just have written down the 2 or 3 things I know I got to get done, it's easier for me when I'm in between a meeting or I'm in between tasks and I'm sitting there thinking, man, should I sit here and scroll through TikTok or Instagram? And then boom, I've got my things I need to do. Oh no, I need to get on that. And so that gives me the mental jolt necessary to make sure I'm getting the most important things done, because oftentimes we'll just get washed away in the flow of the day without intentionally focusing in on the tasks that are most important. But if I can build that momentum around most important tasks, then I feel like I'm making progress.
Jason, success leaves clues. And I've just pulled out my 3 things from my pocket. Every morning, I write down the most important things to do today.
I love it.
And, Jason is my brother from another mother, as we're discovering on the show. But the reality is that we're doing the same happiness habits because these are the happiness habits.
Yeah.
This is the, we're talking mindset right now. We're talking about positive belief in ourselves, figuring out what's most important to do today and writing it down, talking about doing our gratitudes. I also do movement exercise each day. I also do meditation each day. I also do prayer each day. And I'd love to just go into those habits for you. We talked a little bit about movement. Why is movement important?
Because we're oftentimes what we try to, I guess, build off of is motivation. And this is, if you've read the 5-second rule from Mel Robbins, this is her big premise, that we're trying to go off of motivation. We wait until we feel like it. And Mel Robbins says you act your way into feeling more than you feel your way into acting. And that has had such an impact on my life, because her whole thing is, even if you don't feel like it. And this morning, my wife made the chore list for my children. I have a 15-year-old son, and on his chore list was mow the lawn. And of course, he's grumbling and mad about mowing the lawn. And I had a chat with him, and I said, listen, I'll be honest. Let's just get this out of the way now, so we don't have to fight about this all summer long. You're going to be mowing the lawn all summer long. One, because I need some help with some of the yard work, and two, you need to learn how to do it. It's good to get out and do it. So let's just get it over with. He doesn't want to mow the lawn. When you're a kid and you don't want to do something, nobody cares. I don't care. He doesn't want to. He's going to do it anyway. When we become adults, we tend to think that if we don't want to, or if we don't feel like it, then we don't need to. That's almost never true. So for me, when I get up, and I'm not a good morning person, I struggle with mornings. What I have found is if I get up and get movement, now I've built momentum. I'm not waiting for motivation to feel like it. I'm capitalizing on a little bit of momentum that I've created by just moving for a few minutes. So now it's easier for me to get into the other things that I need to do today. It's easier for me to get into emails, strangely. It's easier for me to focus on the project that I'm working on. It's easier for me to get work done if I've just built a little bit of momentum. And again, endless studies will show the mental impact of exercise, the mental impact of movement. It's physiological. There's chemical releases in your brain, dopamine. When we exercise, these chemicals release into the body, endorphins release into the body. You feel better. You're in a good mood. And I do a bit of running. I've done more in the past than what I do now. And it's so funny because people say to me, oh, I could never run. I hate running. It sucks. And I always tell them, I mean, I've run half marathons, and the first mile always sucks. The first mile's never good. I'm never out there at the first mile going, man, this is great. But then the endorphins kick in, the whatever pain blockers, runner's high, whatever it is. And I'm at the end of the run, and I'm like, that was great. I should do that again tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, and I'm like, I don't want to run. Why would I ever run? This is stupid.
But you act your way into feeling. And so what you're saying is, once you get going, and maybe you just break just the first sweat, because I feel this too. When I just start breaking a sweat, all of a sudden now I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's starting to feel good.
Yeah.
I have found for myself, though, because that my habit of movement or exercise is in the morning, that if I miss it for some reason in the morning, it takes a tremendous amount of willpower for me to try to exercise in the afternoon now.
Oh, yeah.
And if I try at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm fighting it the whole time. And I don't know if you're the same way. And some people, I'm sure, are afternoon workout people, but because I've created the morning routine of exercise, it's way easier to just get it out of the way, kind of like mowing the lawn. Just hey, let's just get this out of the way. Yeah. I was a 15-year-old once, and my dad told me to mow the lawn, and I grumbled about it. And I probably had the same scowl on my face as your son is dealing with on his face right now.
Yeah.
But you know what? I did it.
Yeah.
I did.
Dad doesn't care. My dad couldn't care less if I didn't want to. Wanting to was never a factor.
Well, so meditation is the habit that I was the most reluctant to start. And it was one of the last habits I ever adopted for happiness. And it's one of these things, I continue to hear this word meditation or silence, and I just, for whatever reason, just I didn't think it was that important. I had tried it a few times, and it felt kind of like a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why is meditation so important?
The research on this one, or the impact on this one, it exists. Oftentimes we kind of discount it because, yeah, it seems like it's kind of like a weird Eastern, it doesn't match as well with our Western kind of principles of, get up and grit and grind. And so we sometimes discount it. But it does, what I have found is that, again, the challenge that we often face is losing connection with the present. So as we're going through the day, as we're going through the week, we get hung up on what's happened in the past. We get stressed about what's coming in the future. We are not present in our connections with our children. We're not present in our connections with loved ones. We're talking to somebody, but we're not there. We're working on something, but our mind is someplace else. And that doesn't create the consistency of connection that really brings long-term happiness. What meditation at its best does is just helps us create the pattern of just being in a moment right then, clearing our mind. Yes, you've got emails to do, but the emails will be there in 10 minutes. Don't stress about them now. Yes, you've got to get up and get the kids ready, but the kids will be ready, or that will be there. So just focus in the moment of right now. And so it, for me, has been helpful in calming my mind at the moment. But what I've noticed most helpful is it gives me the tool set or the strength to calm my mind later in the day when I really need it. In a stressful situation, I can calm my mind better and just focus in. When my kid comes up to me and I'm stressed and frustrated, but man, here's my 9-year-old daughter and she's just come home from school and she's excited to see me. And I kind of have two routes of, don't talk to me right now, I'm stressed and frustrated, or can I just pause and be in the moment for a couple of minutes with my daughter and then get back to the stressful project, the stressful work.
That was so beautifully said. Because as we started the show, we talked about the hierarchy of needs is this self-actualization of loving. We can only love in the present because we can only find connection with ourself or our creator or each other in this present moment. So there's really nothing more important to practice than coming out of our thoughts of all the stuff we need to do and practice getting present so that we can love. And that is the base of happiness. And that, the last piece of this is God exists in the present, not in our thoughts of the future or our ruminations of the past.
Yeah.
And so then there's this piece of prayer. And, I was raised in a Christian faith and then lost my way from that faith. And I remember in my 20s and early 30s when I had lost my way, I was looking at people with a strong faith and I said, man, it's so easy for them to be happy because they've got this faith. And I would be jealous that they had this faith. And so my urge is that if you have lost your way on faith, is find your way back, because life has got challenges that are bigger than we can figure out.
Yeah.
And without knowing that God is there loving us the whole way, we suffer.
Yeah. And that is the heart of it is, getting into the present, getting into being aware of. And for those who are, of the Christian belief, what's fascinating is the principle is true. And so even if you're not in a Christian belief, the reality is if you do kind things for other people, you feel better. And in the Christian belief, that's, the Good Samaritan or 100 other stories that you would read in the New Testament. And that's one of the challenges is we get so wrapped up in so many things that opportunities pass us by and we don't take full advantage of every Samaritan that we might see along the way. As you move into being more present, I do believe it opens your mind, it opens your heart up to seeing opportunities and then being able to do acts of generosity and kindness. And the impact of that is quite remarkable.
And when we're generous and kind, it's not for them. It actually adds to our happiness.
Yeah.
And it is for them too. Man, yeah. Jason,
it's a little selfish, but yes,
this has been just like one of my favorite conversations on my absolute favorite topic. And I am it's such an honor to share this time with you and to share the same habits with you. And I'm hopeful that the person listening that maybe has picked up a habit that will lead them to be more present and more joyful. Jason's got this free gift, Happily Habits Guide. You can get it if you're on our newsletter, and if not, goodmoodshow.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter. Jason, there's also people who are going to want to reach out to you directly and learn more from you. How would people get in touch?
The best thing to do is go to thejasonharwood.com. Turns out that jasonharwood.com, I think he's actually a real estate guy or insurance or something. So mine is thejasonharwood.com. And you can find me on Instagram as well. But yeah, if you go to thejasonharwood.com, you will find the free Happily Habits Guide. And that's going to walk you through this idea of identifying some of the core characteristics. We've talked about some of the inner core things that really drive us. And then it's going to walk you step by step through how to create an intentional habit around that thing, and give you a habit tracker where you can track your habits and be more consistent with it.
And how do people work with you?
There's also a contact link there where you can email me and say, hey, I'd like to set up a 30-minute, I use Calendly, but you can set up a 30-minute habit talk, and we'll just talk through what are the areas of your life that you want to grow in, and how can we create a habit plan for it.
Man, so if you're in the dark, or if it's getting a little darker, if the sun feels like it's setting around you, this would be an incredible resource if you could have a 30-minute conversation with Jason about how to turn that light back on. And man, you've opened my heart today, and I just really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. Thanks, Matt.
All right, we'll see you.